they're blinding me. But the other thing I'm going to do is encourage people to move forward, because that's how you create the intimacy that this room is famous for. To move, I'm cajoling people. There's some inching forward, but really we have some. There's Tom Devaney. He'll come and sit in the front. Anyway, come move forward. Sitting in the back, it's okay. It's just doesn't have the same. You're not sending the same message. Hey, Tom. All right, so I'm gonna come back in 1 minute and we'll start. Okay, it's so great that you're here. Hey, everybody. Oh man. It feels like the first day of spring, so we're going to spring forward, right? Hey, everybody. Hey. Welcome back to the Writer's House. This has been thrilling. This person over here is William J. Harris, Billy Joe Harris. Let's hear it for him. And this person, you're applauding yourself now, Tyrone. This person over here, to my immediate right, is Tyrone Williams. And this is the person of the day. We've been calling it Aldon Day because it is a day when we are, period. No, it is a day when we are spending some time doing what we should be doing all the time, about and for the people whose work over decades we admire. But, it's funny, even in a conversation we had this afternoon, which we recorded, Aldon said, all this discussion about my work and the praise, like, he didn't say this, but he was thinking it would have been really easier for my career if you'd done that 20 years ago and I have some more fuel in the tank. Anyway, we're here to celebrate Aldon, and we've been doing this the last 6 or 7 years. Big interruption because of the pandemic. The four of us we accidentally kind of got together one time. I can't remember what the first conversation was about. We got together. We did a poem talk. We had some kind of public presentation here in this room. And then we thought this was really, and we went out to dinner, and it was so much fun. And we thought, let's do this again. Right? And so we got the band back together to do it again. One time Erica Hunt joined us, so we had a big long table here. We did a poem talk featuring Erica's work. We did the same with a Baraka song that he did with the Roots, which was just amazing. And so we decided to do it again. We're just a little bit pandemically older, but wiser, and of course, Billy Joe never ages, so you are amazing. I'll just say that. You're supposed to put your hands together when somebody says something like that. So what we're going to do tonight, I'm going to just say a few words by way of introduction, very informal and very quick, is it's a triple reading in honor of Aldon. We have not prepared any Aldonish things ahead of time, but I do anticipate that my colleagues, Billy Joe and Tyrone, will have something to say at the beginning of their reading about Aldon. I asked them to resonate with Aldon's work, and they've been mocking me for that use of that word all day. Is there anything wrong with resonating with a poet you admire or a critic you admire? Rachel's she's not super affirmatively confirming that. There's nothing, you're giggling because it's such a ridiculous thing. No, they do like to do that. We're selling copies in the living room of some of their books. Hope that you will get inspired to, if you don't have some of these books, I'm going to show you a few of them. And one, I don't think we have this. Did we have this out there? So I want to alert you to something that's going on in Billy Joe's poetic life. And then we have a really nice spread, a reception. So we hope, and these are really, despite them kidding me all day about resonating, as long as you don't say that you resonated really well with their poetry during the reading, they will probably happily talk with you and get to know you. They are, all three of them are what? What are you saying? You are very friendly. And they will resonate with you, even if you don't use that word. And they are, I find, great inspirers, mentors, teachers. All three of them are remarkable in this way. This afternoon, we talked about Aldon's book, Trey, which begins with the title poem, which is partly a response, or mostly a response, to the killing of Trayvon Martin. And I think we do have some copies of that book, completely remarkable thing. And this is probably the newest thing that's out. Am I right? Yeah. So this is called Memoirs, in which Ethelbert Miller interviews Aldon, and Aldon writes on all kinds of really interesting topics. Highly recommend this. Billy Joe, news. The February 2023. Some of you are reluctant subscribers to Poetry Magazine. Some of you are happy subscribers to Poetry Magazine. This isn't exactly a Poetry Magazine kind of house, but it is now. It is now because I don't know who you are, but and I'm not going to embarrass you too much, but I'm getting away from the mic. Okay, see the table of contents? Poem here, a couple poems from somebody there. Look at all those. William J. Harris, 20 poems. All right? So I think you're putting your hands together for Poetry Magazine that got its shit together. And I imagine it's possible you might read a poem or two from this selection, but I urge you to get a copy of this. And there are several Tyrone Williams books, but the one I want to point out is As Is, which thinks a lot about and around Islam and really the sound of this As Is and the thinking about the presentness of As Is. And I just think it's most amazing book. So we have three great poets. We just 5 minutes ago decided who's going first. And because he's standing, I guess you could, he's saying, Al, get off the stage because my time is. So let's welcome once again a dear, dear friend of the Writers' House and of me, this wonderful guy, William J. Harris.
Thank you, Al. And thank you for putting together the day. So I want to say a couple things about Aldon. And the beginning thing is, it is really great to get together and celebrate.
Oh, you're fine. You're just
okay, really? Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay, great. Because that's one of my problems, not talking to the mic. It's really great to get together and celebrate a friend and somebody who has been dedicated to poetry. We're all dedicated to poetry in the room, but it's just great that we could do that. And today has given us an opportunity to talk about Aldon's latest book, Trey, in the morning, and so really talk about at noon, really talk about that really interesting storytelling, the way that he puts. Here's a drama that we all sort of know mostly from TV, and then he takes that sort of imagery that you find from TV, and he re-stretches it, he redoes it. To give you this very strong emotional impact, but also helps you go through the details of the situation of the moment. So it's and critical storytelling. So we spent time about that, and then we had a wonderful interview of Aldon and of his work. And so we saw somebody who's both a wonderful poet and a critic, and how they come together. Because all three of us are engaged in writing poetry and being passionate about, but also very passionate about about reading people's work and trying to understand it and trying to share it. And I don't know how long I've known Aldon, but I've seen him at, I met him at a conference. We've been going to conferences together for a long time, and it's great. And I'm glad to be part of today. This cuts into my 20 minutes, so let me get to the poems. So I want to read some of my poems today, and starting with poems which maybe relate to Aldon. But the funny thing about if you teach, I teach and write about Baraka over and over, and each time I write about him, it changes. I mean, someone says, "Don't you get bored writing about him?" And maybe just because I'm slow, but I keep learning these things about him, and he keeps changing. Now he's a guy who goes through a lot of changes. So when I was looking at Trey today, I was thinking, this is stranger than most of the stuff I've read by Aldon. And I thought, I'll start with a couple of my poems, which are a little stranger than usual. So I would do that. But something was sort of interesting while we were going over the interview. I was looking at older poems, and I realized they were stranger than I thought. So I think I'm reconceiving my ideas about Aldon. But I want to start with, and this is from an old book, and Aldon has a poem called Habitual, and I have a poem called Habitual. They don't really have anything to do with each other, except they both are sort of strange, but mine is psychologically strange, and I'll make up and say his is maybe metaphysically strange. But don't hold me accountable. Habitual. Sometimes the octopus wraps his arms around my neck, sucking vigorously with his chalk-red tentacles. He grows numb, stops, winks, and confides to me that he's my buddy, a real friend. Other times when I stroll the deck, he sneaks up behind me and squirts black India ink on my white captain's uniform. And other times, when the octopus isn't around, there's the whale who hovers near the ship. He has the eyes of a dead man, unmoving but accusing. He asks, a hurt look on his face, "What's wrong with you? Why are you so nervous? Where's your confidence?" Usually, I quietly tiptoe away. And this is another old poem, and it's sort of like, well, it is. It comes out of the whole surrealist moment. When at one point, I guess everybody was writing surrealist poems. Practical concerns. From a distance, I watch. A man digging a hole with a machine. I go closer. The hole is deep and narrow. At the bottom is a bird. I ask the ditch digger if I may climb down and ask the bird a question. He says, "Why, sure." It's nice and cool in the ditch. The bird and I talk about singing, very little about technique. And the odd thing about the poems being published in poetry, first of all, that they published my poems in poetry, but some of them have been incredibly popular, and there's this whole thing I don't know anything about really, which is that there's a lot of digital poetry websites, and they'll take a poem, and then oodles of people read the poem. It's unbelievable. So at this moment, I think more people have read my poetry than ever. Now, they may not remember who I am or anything, but it's kind of interesting. The whole digital thing is sort of interesting. So one of these digital people they took a poem called I'm No Martian. I'm no Martian. Shit, man, I'm no Martian. My mother was born in Brooklyn Heights. I just went to a couple Martian meetings, just went to a few Martian parties, slept with a few Martian girls, but shit, man, I ain't no Martian. Okay. When I was at Stanford, in the late 60s, my teacher was Wendell Berry, who was a very distinguished Southern Kentucky poet. And I wrote him a poem. And it's biographical, meaning like he bought a watch, and I bought a watch. That's the story. See, that's okay. You like the story? Okay. So Wendell was my teacher, and I think what's in a way interesting about this poem, I submitted it to the creative writing class, and so it was just the poem, Billy Joe's poem for the day. And all right, what you need to know is there's a wind-up clock at the beginning of the poem. There's another wind-up clock at the end of the poem. In the middle, there is this $80 watch, which my mother gave me. See, this is a biographical poem. So, and I'll tell you after something. My friend Wendell Berry, and I would never, I did it, but I wouldn't, but I wouldn't do it anymore. My friend Wendell Berry bought a watch like this one for 25 cents off the back of a truck in San Francisco. He was real excited and happy about his shrewd deal. I, sophisticated Midwesterner, with an $88 watch like this one, given to me by my mother, was simply unimpressed and a little amused. You see, Wendell is from a couple of miles below the Ohio River, and I'm from several miles above the Ohio River in the lap of culture. Well, yesterday my $80 watch broke, and Wendell offered to sell me his watch for 50 cents. That would be 100% profit. So I went to this discount place, Bazaar, and bought a watch like this one for $3.66. Obviously a better watch than Wendell's. But I ain't never going to talk to Mr. Wendell Berry again. and something, before we were talking about sounds of poems and how we are all, interested in the sound, the music of poems. And I remembered when I was writing this poem, there's a short story by Eudora Welty called I Live at the P.O. I live at the P.O. I think that. Why I live at the P.O. That's right. That says that there. You're right. Why I live at the P.O. And I don't remember the story, but what I remember is I used to listen to the record of it. There was a recording of it, and I loved her voice. I just absolutely loved her voice and the incredible wit and irony contained in it. And so, I think in a real way, the music of the poem comes from Eudora Welty and her reading of that poem. And that crossed my mind today when we were talking about the sounds and the music of poetry. Now, I'm going to do this. I'm going to read a poem which it just amazes me. So it was on one of these websites, and I'm not going to mention the number of people who but gee whiz, it was a lot of people that liked the poem. And that's what they do. They confuse they like with a heart, which I don't understand. I think that's more passionate than like. But anyway, so they loved this poem. I thought about, this is a poem written a long time ago. you know, what does that mean? So anyway, here's the poem that a lot of people liked. Why did it? Why did it take all day to get nothing accomplished? Well, I could have started at noon and saved a lot of time. And I went through a big philosophy thing at one time, English philosophy thing, and I want to read two of those poems. One is a found poem. You see, so we had a surreal poem, now we're having a found poem, all these things for a moment. So this is G.E. Moore, the British philosopher, says, whenever a philosopher says something is really real, you can be really sure that what he says is really real isn't real, really. Okay, and I think this is kind of, the second philosophy poem is called The Western Philosopher, and I think this is kind of like a mellow black nationalist poem. The Western Philosopher. He shits and doesn't even notice it. He has his mind on the stars. Warning, don't let him sit on your head. Okay, so I will move over to some poems from the magazine. I'll read that version of it. Okay. Hey, fella, would you mind holding this piano a moment? For Reg and Susie. As you were walking down the street, this guy asked you to hold his violin. It's a Stradivarius. Soon as it falls into your hands, you start playing like crazy. The violin almost plays itself. Your powerful hands nearly break the instrument. But the music is gentle and sweet. You sweep your long artistic hair out of your face. Everybody in the room, in the bull ring, in the audience, in the Coliseum starts clapping and shouting encore and while. Everybody who ever thought you were dumb and untalented goes apeshit over your hidden genius. Gee, I never knew you played, says your astonished high school principal. Okay, and then there's a poem for my mother. And I was very fond of my mother, and my mother was she was a woman with incredible talents and should have been running something and never had the opportunity to. And she had this incredible anger, which I exaggerate, I realize, in the poem. A guy in a black SUV. As I slowly inch toward the toll booth, a guy in a black SUV cuts in front of me, pretends I'm not there, simply edges forward in his massive black machine. I mutter, but say nothing. However, if this guy had done this to my mother, she would, without a second's hesitation, slam her car into his, leap out of hers, smash his windshield with a crowbar, while swearing at him like a wild woman. As the guy would jump out of his vehicle, running toward her, screaming, "Are you crazy?" she would swiftly kick him in the nuts. And as he crumbles to the ground, holding his privates, this magnificent fury beyond his comprehension, he would simply reiterate, "Are you crazy?" What a woman. So I'm going to read two more. And this is a poem for my father. Nobody wants to write an elegy. You would do anything to avoid that. You just want one more day with Dad, watching Turner Classics together, talking about the old days, talking about Canada, talking about the Union Pacific Railroad, talking about being broke and on the road with the band, talking about Mother, gone almost 10 years. He still misses her. I would be so glad if she just would walk through the door, son. The next movie brings him back to his early teens when he was an usher in one of those grand movie palaces in Montreal and in Calgary. He begins to get away from me, walking toward the screen in his majestic, almost military uniform. He disappears from the room. He's gone. Nobody wants to write an elegy. You can do anything. You would do anything to avoid that. Everybody wants just one more day. Oh, I'll read this one. I won't read the other one. This is a Billy Joe Harris poem. And my mother gave me the nickname Billy Joe when I was a child. But she told me I had to sign checks, William J. Harris. This is a Billy Joe Harris poem. This is a Billy Joe Harris poem. It's the only type of poem I can write. I can't write a personal Frank O'Hara poem, even though I like them, or a very personal, perhaps too personal Charles Bukowski poem, even though I like them too. Dear reader, for the moment at least, while you are here, you are stuck within a Billy Joe Harris poem. What is it like, you asked? Well, it's a whole lot like me. How do you judge it, you asked? Well, I don't really know. But I hope you like being here with me. Thank you.
So I didn't know we were supposed to say more things about Aldon, but I'll try to say something.
You did? Oh, you didn't read your email.
I guess not. Okay. So Aldon, well, I'll just repeat some of the things I said this morning or this afternoon. I can't remember. I don't know how long I've known Aldon either. But I think I had more hair and less weight here. So whenever we met, so it's been a few years. And also, I don't know if these poems resonate with those of Aldon's, but at least with some of the poems in the selected, I think they might. So these are very short poems that I'll be reading. What time is it? Okay. And these might also be, well, they're not uncharacteristic because I wrote them, but maybe a little bit different. So this is part 9 of the opening poem from this book, Stilettos in a Rifle Range. Somewhere in Cincinnati, high ground, spidery lightning, the diner now closed, patterns now closed, Januaries now closed, robins, I get the picture, high ground, watermark, credit extensions, decompressed desire, towers east, west, Terre Haute, now closed, Tuxedo Park, now closed, the pool, the straight. Mama's boy. At least once a month, a man boards a bus bound for the Motor City. One bag, a few bucks. Nevertheless, he always tells himself, I just might leave Cincinnati for good. Just cut out, never look back. When he arrives in Detroit, he drinks and drinks it all in until he's dead drunk on all fours. A 2-year-old mama's boy, bawling all night, night after night, for the salty milk of his mother, turning in her sleep from her hard back. When he takes at long last the last bus back to the Queen City, long after the only rest stop, he notices the first signs: merciless thirst, swollen ankles, what the folks down south call sugar. Oh, apologies in advance for the language. H-bomb. Her fuck me hills will have been heard. Hers will have should, a deep throat strangulated by the hands of a clickety clock. A pretty watched, tick-tocked, off the fuck you effects of Doppler gangbusters. Belle Isle, Detroit. Lungs parked alongside lungs taking in the COT of inside jobs. Heads in laps, lap all in, orality pulls ahead, flung back, in tap that app, slap, slap, bottoms, ump, arm span on legs akimbo, Trojan horse, brain still vil. This is my voice here. Damn. Quickie, nibble, pop-up nipple. Butter is the new thumbs up a fine piece. T and A, cross-eyed A. Sorry, I'm not really getting choked up. I'm just losing my voice here. Dear R, dear S. S'il vous plaît, respondez, rendez perhaps with either vous, mes petite, or just two. The party I threw, just pour deux, is almost over, my sad balloons sagging, like streamers, wrinkled, crinkled, and the guests, my newly departed, my beard, have left me ici. Ice melting in hands, palms turned up, dogs on their backs. As hands in heaven, I pull the string on S. Sorry to bother you again, Ara, but have you seen T? Don't lean on the horn. Slow down, you're not Cary Grant. Slow down, the food's not going anywhere. Wait, go back for a few channels. Slow down, do you have to tailgate? Slow down, do you have to walk ahead of me? Wait, slow down, you just ran over a bunch of roses. What do you mean you already came? Go, hurry up, get the hell out. Wounded, dead. He find himself kicked to the curb. She flung up a flight of stairs where I, clothesline, tripwire, cut the crust from that slice of pie. This is two tangas. Toys were us. Dear Barbie, you fuck. You got your kin, the dollhouse, the 2 kids. Thanks to his ex, that white hell on heels you hate, Miss Chocolate Snowflake. Dear wannabe Ken, nigger please, nobody wants to hear your piss poor ass pout. Having son, wish you were here to trim the hedges, hoss. Antagonistes. AP, bitch on the loose or prowl. Repeat, imperative flees indicative. That is, the set of all sets rears up. Set, armed with sash, check. Rope, check. Noose, check. Leaking extreme necktie. Alert, poontang on the lamb. Z, Tomby. Too late to talk, table the periodic, but can that sister bring her in from the code? Can't believe this disbelief, can't cut out. This report was filed by Creon, second father, first son, with special assistance from the net. Enjambment avalanche. Pumping iron lotions, rusty elbows, and 10 low words off creep in one dull line. Dusty barbells rat me out. Ashy knees I try to play off. But misdirection is a boomerang, a yo-yo combo meal the quarterback has to eat. Helmet in hand, I head off the field to ride the bench, to ride it out. All of which means I miss you less than I did the day you dropped a rhyming couplet, goodbye, Ty, followed by a single whole rest note you still sustain. These are not very cheery, I just realized. Oh well. That suddenly occurred to me. And you'll see why. A weekend away. I have never slept as well as I did that first evening. The cottage rental, the bay windows, open to the breezy amenities of Lake Superior. Lazy walks, bicycle rides, and a picnic, peppered with profanities, shouts, the afterglow of rage. An umbrella of smog sheltered the city swelling on the horizon, a standing army of randomly assorted pawns, queens, and kings. We were almost home, and our only hope was that the other would die, just fucking die. I'm going to end on uplift, though. I know it can't get much lower, but it'll be a little uplift here in these last couple points. A smile wide as the slumbering tsunamis between us is a kiss asunder, Sagil pout, black angel hair over brown shoulder blade, rare cut, soft decapitation, half treading earthquakes. How on earth? The clucks of Dow tumbleweeds pass, kaput flanier, Janus kneecaps wrecked akimbo, all points, Buddha and Budapest, she wolf whistle in all ears, pause and drew, he come eloping, nose open wide to that wanton wisp, his pungent errand tress. Oops. And last one. The Venice virus, as in a Venn diagram. In an envelope slipped into the side pocket, flanked by the legal pad handler of a frontispiece leather-bound file folder, at the back of a cabinet framed by the furniture of folding work into area, in a house, in a city, a world, etc., absolute universe. a hand severed from its wrist as cleanly as the nothing between it and other hands, remains in it as remains of a fleeting grasp, heavenly asteroid inflated into an envoy, cornered stamp, and an envelope rough salt left over from your tongue absorbs the last drops of moisture from the cut roses enclosed. An avocado yellow piece of cheap string promoted to crinkled sash, poised to distribute effective orders. Holds a piece of cardboard folded into a card, down if not downsized, the card lunging forth like a wild Cantonese from a throat concealed by a Mandarin mouth. Chow, in effect, an envelope of tropes, flashcards, the occult. Thanks.
Jocko. In remotest Rhode Island, on a hill far away, stands a government warehouse, the emblem of suffering and shame. And in that warehouse stands a small black man, washed over and baptized by waves that should detect the slightest movement of this trophy at last laid down. And that warehouse is surrounded by mines, encircled by tanks, barrels bristling in the Rhode Island calm. No roads lead here anymore. The maps have been altered. No visitors allowed. And that small black man smiles in mute amusement at the picture he must present there among his fellows, in his striped jockey suit, cap clapped tightly on his head, his red lips catching the light from the lantern he holds before him, just over the shoulder of another small black man in a jockey suit, raising his light at the shoulder of another tiny black jockey. They smile in silence, rank after rank in their thousands, all raising their lanterns, awaiting their moment. I want Al to know that the object depicted on the cover of this recent book is in fact a resonator. You were right all along. It appears I'm the only person not required to speak of Aldon Nielsen. Tremendous convenience. But I will make a comment here. You'll notice that none of us can remember when we first met each other, which says something about our advancing years, I suppose. But I do remember vividly the first time I read the writings of each of these people, and I can't tell you how much it's meant to me to continue reading their writings over the years and to have gotten to know them. We can't always meet the people whose writing means a lot to us, so I always treasure it when I can. Self-organizing networks. I used to be a systems analyst. On a landscape with heroes, the small takes to the field, shaking its horns. A feeling breaks from the bush without warning. The spiced wine on its breath becomes a part of what we know. By the shed light of circumstance, mean fortune seizes on the mind swimming in our skins. The things that ruled before we were have gone off with their wealth, leaving a message of hands buried, fingertips showing eyes that roll in the ground at our approach. There is a thought that pushes continents around. It is an idea that occurred to us once too soon and grew beyond our understanding. We tremble as we try to think it now. We walk with the word in this world. It makes a palace of where we are. It takes the ground from beneath our feet. I was just remembering when Tyrone and Thomas and I were in Brooklyn, I said that I don't do this, but what I actually said was I don't do the sticky ones. Half a poem for David Bromwich. No one can tell you not to listen. With half an eye to fate, another half occluded. Anyone had half a heart would hear what snow amounts to above a city's prophets. An attendant, face angled into light as she lifts into heaven ahead. She loves to hear him whisper solipsism in her ear. Pressure we share attendant upon a rising. A mother draws 4 of each for her 2 children who persist in saying 7. Sentences take more time as our shadow across snow flying etches. I also want to acknowledge the work of Jean-Philippe Marcoux, who edited this volume of selected poems, and to whom I'm truly grateful. Since I'm talking about covers, the image on the cover of this book is a picture I made when I was 13 years old. This was taken on the grounds of the Capitol building as John Kennedy's body lay in state inside. And one thing that we have in common, despite our varying dates of birth, is having lived through a lot of the same history. And you don't have to be Frederick Jameson to see the way that history impresses itself upon our consciousness and weaves its way through the works that we do. A sense of the monumental. Some days don't feel like anything more than the furry side of an eyeball, while others have an abrasiveness about them as if they had nothing in mind less than stripping you to the bone. This is one of those days, and I'm watching the monument. I do this, I do that, waiting for the words to come like loud tourists telling me what to think. I didn't know those people over there, ringing the bass like a human quoit dropped from far around the shaft to win a prize. The numbing pin keeps me from crying out at the sight of the line partway up dividing the lighter from the darker stone, the place where the money ran out, that can't even be seen on the elevator right inside where construction stood still and the would-be monument was left a stump stuck out on the rise waiting for popular pressure. That same pressure, bunching up around the base now, waiting in line for the ascent, keeping me from shouting out the simple fact that they shall not see bottom from top. I feel today like one of those instruments that monitors a vat of water stored in the depths of an abandoned mine, not seeing the particles streaming through earth, but their traces in water. I sense the rise and fall of the people within that stone, weigh it against the pressure outside, formulate an equilibrium of sorts. If one could hang in heavy water, it would be that sort. I measure from the line of discolored rock and reckon speed and distance traveled by the passing fancy. Look above the line to where I can know faces are smashed against the glass for no reason at all save that this is one of those days. Through the wrong end of a zoom lens, I take a picture of myself as if I could be seen from the peak. I'm saving that one for a little bit later. The unfortunate psychic. She had not expected to be found strangled in her own flat. Neither had she seen coming that falling rod of iron that creased her pensive brow and robbed her, she said, of her abilities, for which she sued the construction company and lost, which was when the quiet little man across the way had his big idea. Imputation. 4 old women getting tanked together slowly in the restaurant, never the bar, which makes it somehow seemly. That and the whiteness of their polite wine. Their husbands long outlived, loved every one, and not a doubt of it. Not a one but wouldn't prefer hers back and at table with her. But this particular sweetness was not then to be had. Waco burning. One made a cross in the air, opening over his head, so he should be known in the photo posted to the world. 7th son of the 7th seal come in fire, children burning to see. Thousands massed to watch Washington inflamed, the chains let down again and again. In the children's hour, facing illumination, a nation seethed. The seized, scourged, burning in his innocence, fuel for the mass. 4 minutes deliberation, too much for them, tired from their hour of trial. Tried their patience. Their hour come round. They burned to be remembered. They burned white. May 1916. Okay, on a happier note. On first hearing sounds orchestral play Vince Guaraldi's Cast Your Fate to the Wind on a car radio. Blaze of night phrase, moon in blue phase, faith cast on waters. Rivers sang sandpipers. Orphic impressions shake poor hearts too. My best friend sky knocking clear channel running alongside the cast into wind past Haynes Point claims our fates. We unwrapped ourselves for this. Limbs parting in the winds of unthreaded music. We were winded, sated in waves, minded to repeat ourselves, to heat up with steamed window against night beats streaming. Dawn rose with river song from film unsung, unstrung. We were singular, spun again, cast to the wind. Let's save these two for last. Anybody know the 60s group, the Buckinghams? This will mean nothing to you in that case. They had 4 or 5 big hits before generously removing themselves from our attention. The night we opened for the Buckinghams, and I didn't hear the Buckinghams. The shortest distance between 2 high school auditoriums was a song in a Silvertone and a Pontiac. Sound checks straining against their image, spreading cream across kind of a drag. The singer nowhere to be seen. You don't care. Hey, baby, they're playing our song. Quantum bubble tea. The quantum dots arrayed themselves against the guesses of the breathless glass blowers. Glowering in blue, they glowed, turned green with envy or red display, waving white for true. Black back lit against the play of night. No physic against the day's digest, no proof against the colorblind. We drew the blinds, set the kettle on to boil, settled in for the Super Bowl. None of the erstwhile theories stood a chance as our excited states had little or no reference. On the couch, an underlying physical mechanism stirred itself, but there was nothing waving in the stands. No spin, no solution. It couldn't be a point. Charge distributions, not membranes, steadied the studied view. Any interaction and unsolved problem, thank God for halftime. Time for a round of superfluid. You can probably tell I don't usually watch the Super Bowl. Karen Alanier and WordWorks are doing a curious project. They're publishing 3 volumes in which they ask poets to respond to different parts of Gertrude Stein's, what the hell is the name of that book? Tender Buttons, thank you. I think it's the, is it the furniture volume that's already out? Whatever volume 1 is already out. Yeah. Well, anyway, I got assigned to the food volume. And I got the shortest one. I think the shortest one in there. Asparagus. Has an epigraph. Everybody talks about the asparagus, but nobody ever does anything about it. Lean Lorca lingers limbing que te quiero verde, espárragos, a lean cut of long green. A green longing makes white asparagus whether or not. Espárragos congelados empapados. Weathered greens in a lean-to, artless. Aspersions cast upon waters. This makes it hot. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the poem. There's a very long Spanish asparagus story that goes with that, but I'm not going to make you suffer that. I'm going to close. We were talking about people who'd encouraged us, instructed us, and so forth. I'm going to read 2 poems about 2 of my teachers. I encourage everyone to write books about their teachers, especially my students. I can't tell you how much this day has meant to me. As I said earlier, in a lifetime of flying under the radar, it's nice to know that someone's hearing something. Not everyone here knows I started out at Federal City College, which, believe me, opens no doors for you anywhere. And, was teaching 4-4, teaching loads, mostly freshman comp for many, 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 many years. And I do tell my graduate students when they're feeling kind of depressed about the situation that they can look at my career and see that you can do it, even this way. And I tell them, but if you can do it some other way, see if you can find that. In a class with Baraka. In the end, then, to a room, Half hangs outside the hall, trashed, overheated, pupils smart. Ashes add up under chairs. People still smoked in class back then. Some of you remember that. Ashes add up under chairs, motes streaming, cling to blinking lids. An odor of investment accrues to this room. English beats against the glass, shadowing through the panes upon the table, obstructing paths of passing planes. The capital's accumulation of images and the mute wavering grain is something we dissect, practicing between ourselves the removal of harmful forms. Head at the window, scarring the glass, meaning glazes over the watching White House, beating back American artist in residence in the new Department of Corrections, planes the blades of our speech, asks examples. Mine is of a piece with a room at an inn that hangs outside in essential popular air. Mine is of a flight that exclaims. Fingers against the glass, I check my watch, prepare to give examples. And then I'll close with, actually there's 2 poems here. What did I say about the most feared words in poetry reading? I only have a few more poems to read. I'm going to read the first 50 parts of my epic. No. The pathetic fallacy crying in its corner, while the great poem of late life writes postcards from the other side of the room, the echoes of accident. A treatise on the Chinese written character as ankle tattoo in the late 20th century. An inkling chorus trumpets bespatterment. We live in a time when journal is a common verb, where less is less, more or less. You can freeze some of the people some of the time. Anyway, I'm going to close now with this second poem for one of my teachers. All the places we've been, a prayer for Gil Scott Heron. Take me to the pilot played on the radio, but we didn't know you in our first class. Gloves out at fingertips, braids beneath leather cap, busied yourself, then busied us. Busy as you were, the Fender Rhodes Scholar of Bluesology was to be our pilot who the cap fit. That first minute of that winter day when nobody knew what to say, we were to be writers on the storm. Time was right up on us. Time was tight. The now that was more than ever was what brought us together. Federal cities, ungranted land, housed our unmitigated band. We were the unruled unruly. We thought we'd call it morning, that storm music. No small talk at 2nd and E. Did you hear what they said? Back home, a toast to the people ain't no new thing. From South Africa to South Carolina, we wrote, and writing rose within our souls. We could not know, watching your hands spider across the keys, how you were to end. How drift away was to be the closing number. Precious Lord, take his hand. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being part of this reunion. We've already started to conspire about our next get-together next year. And we haven't even asked Evie if she would join us, but we've got this idea of bringing Evie Shockley down from Rutgers and having a poem talk around her work and interviewing her and then having another reading. So anybody in favor of inviting Evie Shockley to come next year? Okay. I think Evie just won a big award, too. Okay, well, don't tell Evie yet. She needs to get an invitation. But this is to say that we think of this as an ongoing conversation. That's often bullshit when people say it. Like, you know, after a class and you're all done and the semester's over, you'll get your grades and you'll never see the teacher again. And that person says, it's an ongoing conversation. We actually mean that. So let's put our hands together for William J. Harris over here. Billy Joe. And for the amazing Tyrone Williams. And it being Aldon Day, we have to have special, like big-time hands working for Aldon Nielsen. So We have books that you can buy at cost. We don't make any money. So if you want to buy a book or two or three, you will see these three poets mingling around. We're not going to keep them here so they can enjoy the reception. So you'll find them around the house. Please, even if you didn't buy a copy of their book, say hello to them, greet them, talk to them, come back to the writer's house, and we'll keep going. This will be an ongoing conversation. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.